Okay, guys, I guess I have some free time to go over something that I'm pretty passionate about, and you know what, with tier lists and all that being all popular, and you know, people love triggering others, making tier lists, and just bringing up conversation. And I'm very passionate about tournament fighters. This game I love very much, so I decided, hey, why not just give my honest tier list opinion on this whole shtick. So here we go. We're gonna talk about just where I think all these characters fall into the whole grand scheme of things in tournament fighters, and just here's just my take and my rationale, my reasoning behind the placement of all these characters. So first off, we're gonna start with, you know, top bottom. We're gonna start with the obvious pick, the obvious god himself. Um, Armagon, you know, enough said. You don't really have to really hear a whole big discussion, but for those that do not know, he has this crazy, dumb flash kick that he could just kind of spam. You know the whole deal. Long legs, you know, good air, just good air combat, good air to air. You know, a nice quick jump to, you know, go through a lot of defense, make approaches and all that. A dive. He's got a ridiculous projectile. He's got good corner game. If he sticks virtually any of the other characters in a corner, he can pretty much death sentence them. Just very, very good character. Oppressive. He's just got all the tools. Only real weakness, I would say, that prevents him from being like absolutely busted, I would say, is just the combination of him not being able to chain normals together. So he kind of has to be very special oriented, if that makes any sense. Just really oriented and like catered to his special moves. And the next thing is, like, if he gets a dizzy, he can only really, in most cases, punish real hard if he gets you in the corner after the dizzy. If you're dizzy and you're somewhere in the middle, usually there's a lot of situations where the Armagon can't really do a whole lot, whereas most of these other characters could do a ton, especially the turtles. They could just do a lot. Turtles, Shredder, I guess Wingnut, you could put Wingnut in there. Like, all the other relevant characters, like really like common characters, can really get a lot off of a dizzy in the right circumstances and the right execution, all that good stuff. So next up, we are having Raph. Raph could pretty much go toe to toe with Armagon. He's got a lot of solid matchups. Let's talk about the matchups too. So like Arm, Raph just bullies a lot of characters. These two characters are very good at bullying like non-relevant characters. You know, if you're playing Arm or you're playing Raph, you're going up against an Asuka, a War, something like that. Really much even Leo and Don, I could kind of put them in there in that, like, kind of, maybe not Don so much, but like if we're talking about Raph and Arm up against Asuka, Leo, and War, like, you can pretty much just kind of bully them around, unfortunately, for those characters on the receiving end. And just Raph doesn't really have, like, off the top of my head, like a losing matchup, which is what makes him like more or less like able to compete with Arm for position for top tier, in my opinion. Just if you fight a cracked out Raph, you know, Raph's got a re-dizzy on the entire cast. So you get dizzy if he knows what he's doing and he doesn't mess up his execution, you just lose the round. So that like speaks volumes. A character like Raph, if you're up against a player who mains Raph and they're just cracked out their mind, expect a fight. Expect a big, big fight. So now we're going to go on to our borderline top tiers. And this is going to be really spicy because this is like just my opinion and like just combination with all my years of experience. Just what I've seen, the development of these characters. This could be in any order. But it's pretty much borderline top is between these two, in my honest opinion. So you could put, you know, there's argument for putting Sedom over Mike or Mike over Sedom. You know, it really kind of doesn't matter. They're both really like neck and neck for position for third in my opinion, because they have really strong cases. If we're talking about you want to pick up a character, you want a solo main, just kind of call it a day, Arm and Raph are your boys. But these two guys, they've got a lot going for them, you know. Let's start with Sedom. So Sedom is really ridiculous, and the main thing that makes him ridiculous is Chrome Spark invincibility. You know, I've got a friend who plays this character, and I've learned a lot in my time playing against this character. Hell, as a kid, I used to think Chrome Dome sucked. As a kid, I used to think like Chrome Dome was like bottom 4, but like just the things I've seen from this character, that this character can have and can put together, from the throw loops to the turtles, he doesn't even depend on that. Honestly, he's just a good character even without the throw loop, because you've got the spark invincibility, the limbs, the command throw. He just could. Sedom has this tricky way of just being able to just slip his way on out of like otherwise lockdown situations that even better characters like Arm and Raph can like find trouble getting out of. Like Chrome Dome can just slap on an invincibility Chrome Spark in many situations. You won't even be able to get a jump in because it kind of doubles as an anti-air as well. He's just able to get himself out of a lot of shaky situations. Wake up EPD. It's just a lot of stuff going for him. And when he gets the jump on you and he can corner you, then that can also spell death as well. He's just got a lot of favorable matchups. Matchup-wise, I honestly could say that Arm is the only one that comes to my mind that has a solid advantage over Chrome Dome. You know, with Chrome Dome, you pretty much go more or less even with Raph. You might have a small advantage, I would say, perhaps against Mike. It might be even. They can both really mess each other up and cheese each other, but like Chrome Dome is pretty challenging for a good Mike. Speaking as a Mike main, you know, Chrome Dome is a threat. It is a threat. Even without the loop, it's just Chrome Dome's got a lot of stuff going. And then, like I said, he's got attributes like the other two that are up here that he can just bully, just straight up bully non-relevant characters. Just beats Asuka, beats War, destroys Leo. Leo has a terrible matchup against this thing. This thing is like the worst matchup I could think of, like, because I also play Leo. It's just so bad, so bad. And he might be advantage over Don. I don't really know the matchup, but generally you've got a lot of strong matchups going for you if you play this character, and Arm is really the only solid answer that I know of, so that's a strong case going for Sedom. As for Mike, my main, this is just completely unbiased, you know, but you could probably call it biased being that I main this character. I have a lot of experience with this character. I play this character in like every matchup, so I pretty much kind of have a good idea of what it is to play in every matchup. Mike is a weird one. So Mike doesn't bully quite as hard as Arm, Raph, even Chrome Dome, honestly. These three probably bully lower tiered characters better than Mike. But the one thing that Mike has going for him is that he has an advantage over Arm. He has the specific trait of being the only character that can confidently say, I'm advantaged over Arm. I've got a good matchup over Arm. And it's just crazy. You know, you pin Arm in the corner, you use the heavy punch, a combination of heavy punch and walk forward, Dragon Breath, just kind of push him to the corner, mix up some slides here and there, just get the Armagon to a corner. If you get a knockdown, you just get in this sweet spot and you spam Dragon Breath, and you put yourself in this spot where the shark upper reversal doesn't quite get you, and you could just put him back in the corner, rinse, repeat. It's quite simple and it's quite hilarious when it happens, but yeah, Mike has some stupid stuff going for him in the arm matchup. Not to mention the only character that really has a solid answer for a shark upper. If he just blocks it, you just Rising Thunder, no problem. Because the thing that makes Armagon pretty crazy and pretty hard to deal with is cross up shark uppers. So a lot of characters have an input that may involve them having to charge back and then go forward or do like a quarter circle motion. Arm can kind of mess that up if he crosses you up after the shark upper, because it can just kind of screw up the input. You do something that you didn't want to do, then shark just runs you over and you just lose the round. With Mike, you don't suffer that because you're doing a charge down to up motion. So regardless of what side you are, whether he crossed you up or not, Mike can just ignorantly throw Rising Thunder, reset the situation, chuck Dragon Breath, start the whole fiasco for Arm to even get in all over again. So he's got that going for him. Other than that, Mike, I would say, goes even with Raph. They both kind of mess each other up. I could go into a whole discussion about this matchup. This is like one of my favorite matchups. It's very good. Both of them can re-dizzy each other. Both of them can just mess each other up. Fat combos, crazy projectiles against each other. Is a solid even matchup. And like I said, against Chrome Dome, I feel like Mike has to kind of work a little bit. He might be a little disadvantaged against Chrome Dome. Chrome Dome is a dangerous character for a Mike main. I would say that you have to work on that matchup. Other than that, Mike, unlike the three, like I said, he doesn't really bully a lot. He doesn't do a whole lot of bullying. So Mike loses to Wingnut in my opinion. That's that's probably his hardest matchup. I would say Wingnut is probably harder than Chrome Dome, just for the simple fact that Wingnut can be really annoying, and there's all these like really annoying angles that Wingnut can just harass Mike from, and it's just really hard to get around. This is probably the worst matchup, but other than that, you have solid matchups. You know, you go even with the other turtles, I would say. Don, Raph, Leo are all even. Your advantage against Shredder. Mike has an advantage over Shredder, I would say. And you've got solid advantage. You probably bully. Asuka and War probably are the ones that Mike bullies. But like I said, unlike these three, he doesn't bully like 3 or 4 characters. He just bullies like probably like bottom 2 or something like that. So yeah, he's like the more fair top tier, where like he isn't so busted against most characters, but the thing that makes Mike relevant is the fact that he beats Arm. That's the thing that kind of it makes him relevant, in my opinion. So next up, we've got the high tier. This is debatable. Most people would probably put Shredder over Wingnut, and I don't know, I guess this is another like kind of tied situation because I see a lot of potential from both of these characters. You've got Shredder, whose main draw is ease of play. Shredder is easy to access. You know, if you know what a boxer plays like, you know, you've played Street Fighter, you've played Balrog, you can pretty much pick up and play Shredder without too much problem. He's got speed, he's got good normals, you know, he can be aggressive and run stuff over if your opponent doesn't know how to squeeze themselves out of tight situations. Shredder can just kind of have a field day for, I guess, beginner players. But I would say that these two characters is where you start to have like more notable problems, whereas like Chrome Dome and Mike, you might have like 1 or 2 problematic matchups. For Chrome Dome, you'll have problems against Arm. For Mike, you might have problems against like Chrome Dome and Wingnut. And that's about it. Like these two could like almost be top tier, but they're not quite there. Whereas I would say Shredder and Wingnut is kind of where stuff starts to become more apparent in terms of weaknesses, right? So with Shredder, you'll run into the fact that, oh wait, Shredder doesn't have a projectile. And Aura Crusher can be stuffed. So if they just kind of sit there, if you ever go in a matchup, something like Shredder versus Chrome Dome can just literally just sit there and just kind of wait for you to throw stuff out and just stuff you with his limbs. It's quite sad. You start to run into walls is what happens with Shredder. You'll have trouble dealing with Chrome Dome's limbs, Mike's heavy punch. You know, Shark, obvious reasons, he can just wait for you and throw a roundhouse or sweep or whatever you guys like to call it. And Raph can probably do something similar. I would say maybe of the top 4, maybe Raph is the one who is like most feasible for Shredder, just because Raph doesn't have anything stupid like for Shredder to deal with, like a Rising Thunder or just a stupid hitbox he could just kind of put out like the other 3. But I would say still, due to Shredder's large frame, he becomes a big target for Raph to kind of do some cross-up shenanigans, get a dizzy on, and as we've discussed before, Raph has a universal re-dizzy on the entire cast, and he could just kind of blow up a Shredder off of that alone. Other than that, solid character. The unique thing about Shredder, and another reason why I put him in high tier and not necessarily like here, although he probably could be here in the eyes of some. Some could probably put him over Mike, maybe here. It could be like that, and I wouldn't have too much problems with it. But for me, I would say he's here because he also doesn't necessarily bully a whole lot, right? So he's very well-rounded matchup-wise. He doesn't lose anything badly. You just kind of have to do workarounds against the matchups that do give you trouble, but he doesn't like get shut down, right? So that's what keeps him on the higher pedestal of the tier list. But the thing about it is, you have characters like War and Asuka who actually don't do too bad against Shredder. And that's kind of cheeky because most characters in the higher echelon of the tier list will pretty much more or less, let's not lie, you know, for the most part, make these two irrelevant, and some of them, even Leo, irrelevant. But when I get to Leo, I'll discuss about Leo and why I think he's not totally hopeless. But yeah, you have matchups where it's just well-rounded. So like, he doesn't really shut anybody down. He doesn't lose badly, but he doesn't shut anybody down, if that makes any sense, which puts him here in this high list. Next we got Wingnut, the hardest character to play. I would say first comes Wingnut in terms of hard difficulty to play. Then we've got Chrome Dome. Chrome Dome is also really hard to play. That's why you don't see a lot of Chrome Domes. And then we've got Mike. Those are these are the 3 hardest characters to play right here in this order: Wingnut, Chrome Dome, Mike. This is why you don't see a whole lot of representation of these 3 characters. You usually see Arm, Shredder, or Raph. You know, the works. But Wingnut is a pretty solid character. The biggest bane to Wingnut is that he doesn't have a reversal. So if you knock him down, you can just kind of have a field day with him. Shredder is most notorious for taking advantage of that. If Shredder just knocks down Wingnut, he could just get a tick throw set up, and Wingnut has to kind of guess, well, am I going to guess that he's going to try to tick throw me and just take the light punch on purpose? Or is he going to actually try to combo me on wake up, in which case I would block? So Shredder has a nasty, like, kind of thing up against Wingnut. I would say a solid 60-40 matchup. As a Mike main, I really like going Shredder against Wingnut just because of that. Shredder could just kind of run over Wingnut on knockdown. It's quite stupid, but hey, it makes Shredder a character, right? And that's the biggest negative trait of this character. You've also got a slow jump, but if you can suffer the no reversal and rather slow jump, you end up with a character who can be really annoying. Good normals, just fast, light, you know, fast light moves and an air dash. So he's like the Magneto before Magneto, you know what I mean? An annoying projectile for many to deal with. He's got the dive. He's got all tools to like just put somebody in a corner and mess their day up. Best super, the complete his super is is just. I didn't even touch up on the supers of these characters, so let's just. But like it's by a landslide. Like this character, Wingnut right here, just has the best super. Like no frills, no chills, bro. It's just you. If you're up against a Wingnut and the Wingnut fills his bar, get ready to possibly lose the round for it because it's a very crazy super. Other than that, this character is largely unexplored, so I wouldn't be surprised if people push Wingnut in the meta and he probably ends up like here. Maybe he might be in the same Shredder type situation where he can come over here, but again, like I said, biggest bane of his existence is the lack of a reversal. So if he gets down, many characters can just chop him up for it. Next, we've got mid-tier. So mid-tier, as much as I want to be biased for Leo, I would say Dawn is probably a little bit better. So you can like bring up things that make put Leo over Dawn. Leo does have a few things over Dawn, which I will name when I get to Leo or whatever. That's fine. But Dawn's just got, you know, that crazy cross up. You know, if you've ever faced a Dawn, Dawn has touch of death. Like if you get crossed up by a Dawn and he bull thrusts you into oblivion, you end up dizzy. He gets a lot of damage. He could just touch of death. He's very deadly. Once you can deal with the cross up, I would say, and like his attempts to try to cheese you, then he becomes significantly less scary. But it's just the possibility is always there. He can always just get in on you if he just finesses, you know what I mean, and just kill you in no time. You know, Don's always got that deadliness to him. Other than that, Don struggles with reversals. That's kind of a lot like Wingnut. I would say that he doesn't suffer quite as much as Wingnut because alas, he does have some kind of reversal option. He can backflip on wake up. He can do a spin kick off wake up, and if the Dawn grinds it enough, they can do a backflip into a spin kick and grant themselves some kind of leeway, some invincibility to get around things. But for the most part, if you get knocked down by like aggressive characters like Shredder, Wingnut, you know, possibly the other characters as well, you could just kind of get like jumped in on for free if you don't do like a very well timed spin kick or something like that. And he has a hard time dealing with that kind of thing where like somebody can just get a free jump in on knockdown. It won't happen all the time if the Dawn kind of knows what they're doing, but generally speaking, the fact that he doesn't have a wake up DP like Mike, like Leo, hell, you could even say that Sedom has a wake up DP. You know, Arm has it. A lot of characters have a way to deal with that kind of stuff, right? Arms with the upper. Raph can just kind of chest buster out of the situation, get himself out of that corner that he doesn't want to be in if they try to jump in on him. Chrome Dome with the invincibility spark. Mike with the rising thunder. The works. You know, a lot of characters have ways to deal with that. Dawn kind of struggles with that. On top of that, his projectile, the ground claw, isn't like super good. You can kind of do little setups with it and like lay some ground claw meaties to do some nasty stuff. I've seen it. I've had it done to me. So it's not a useless move, but if we're talking about the traditional purpose of a projectile, then yeah, it's pretty bad. It's low to the ground and relatively fast, so it's easy to jump over, which makes it kind of bad. But other than that, you know, you have a lot of damage output when you actually get in there, so it doesn't make Dawn awful. And just because of that, Dawn is a respectable character, and I could definitely see Dawn being pushed into possibly a high tier. with all those things put into consideration. Next, we've got Leo, a very passion character for me. People would probably put him in low tier, but I think he's got stuff going for him. The thing that pulls Leo down is that a lot of matchups suck. That's kind of the main thing, and he can be hard to like actually master and like get to know like what his playstyle is. So the problem is a lot of people try to treat him like a Shoto, and in my opinion he's a reverse Shoto. So you know, when you think about a Shoto, and a Shoto is like pretty much mostly about their DP, right? Think about a Shoto, Ryu, Ken, whatever, you know, all that stuff. Usually they're known more for their bullshit Shoryukens, and then, oh yeah, by the way, he has a projectile as well as that, you know, to play a keep out game. Whereas they're like that, I would say Leo is more like a reverse Shoto. Leo is mostly about his projectile, and then he just so happens to have a very meh DP just to function as a DP, if you know what I mean. Like, mostly Leo's about trying to get that stun, that dizzy. You know, he's trying to get you dizzy. And his Shining Cutter has a lot of stun. That's the unique trait about him, and that's why I think, like, I like him, because he can fish for dizzies relatively easily as opposed to his brothers, right? But the thing is that he doesn't punish as hard, but he gets those dizzies easier. He can fish for them easier. He just doesn't punish them as hard as his three brothers. You know, Raph, Mike, and Don, they have really hard punishes. Leo's punish is not like... It's not bad either. It's a punish. It's still a solid punish, but it's just, if you compare it to the other three can do like significantly more with a punish. But like I said, with the stun that the Shining Cutter has, you can look for those dizzy situations more frequently, and that's kind of what you have to base his game plan on. So his game plan is mostly about, how do I get in that Shining Cutter? How do I get him dizzy? How do I just get him in a bad situation where he can just kind of continue to mess up? So it's very about positioning and just playing the neutral game as profoundly as you can. People sleep on... this is a thing that Don and Leo have over Mike and Raph. So, like, they have, like, ignorant jumping heavy punches. This is something that... I want to say that Leo's jumping heavy punch is slightly better than Don, but I don't know. Don't quote me on that. But both of these characters have really good, strong jumping heavy punches. Believe it or not, Leo's jumping heavy punch can actually stuff the DPs of Armagon and Mike. So, believe it or not, if you do like a good spacing on it and you throw it out at the right time, you can just straight up beat those moves. Straight up. And many people don't know that. So they think that, oh no, Leo just kind of gets fucked on. And that's that, right? But no, that's not how it is, actually. How it is, actually, is that you want to center... That's probably easily his best move. The jumping heavy punch is quite honestly his best move in my opinion. But the bad thing about Leo is that Shining Cutter has a lot of end lag. So you have to be careful about the way you Shining Cutter. And if you get punished as Leo, it's gonna sting. You wanna know why? Because most of his matchups just pretty much suck. I think he honestly just struggles with most of them. Arm, Raph, Chrome Dome is a nightmare. This is like just... I don't see any real world where he has any real chance against Chrome Dome. Like, I'd rather fight Arm than Chrome Dome. That's how bad it is. Shredder and Wingnut also beat him solidly. The only character among these six that I would say Leo can actually fight against and actually do something against, and which is the reason that Leo doesn't actually do bad again, isn't actually like a bad character, is Mike. He actually has an even matchup against Mike. So the unfortunate thing with Raph is that because of his chest buster, it just invalidates a lot of the positions that Leo could put himself into an advantage state against Raph. So that's the main thing. If Raph did not have a chest buster, he would be another Mike for Leo. Leo has really easy stun setups for these two characters. if you get in a late jumping heavy punch and you combo that into a crouching light punch and a shining cutter, you can instantly dizzy these two characters. Mike and Raph immediately get dizzied off of that, and then you could just do your dizzy punish. And that's a big component of why I think the matchup evens out with Mike, at least. Raph, like I said, is because of the chest buster. That's a whole discussion in and of itself, but let's not waste any more time. Long story short, Leo has potential and he's not terrible, but because he suffers a lot of bad matchups, I wouldn't have a problem with people putting him in low tier. But in my opinion, I think he's mid. He's a low mid because I guess you could say it's a little bit of bias, but he's also unexplored and people don't tap into the character, but he does suffer matchups. So yeah, there's that. Next we have, I would say maybe like Asuka is just like clearly better than War. I would say just put like a whole, I just don't want to make a whole other list, a whole other tier, but Asuka is definitely better than War. War struggles with doing combos, and he has to like play very big brain. He's only got his large jump. You gotta just play out your wits, just out of your mind, just like stuffing your opponent's stuff and just jumping over their things and just doing immaculate spacing. He has good normals. He has some range. The boy's got some range on him, and he's got a really good throw. But beyond that, you know, the super's not really that good. It's not complete trash either, but it's not good. You know, he can't combo. That's the biggest bane of him. He can't really combo. No projectile. You know, if he gets put in a corner, he's gonna have a bad time because he'll have a hard time kind of getting out of there. What with the reversal options that he has are just pretty bad, if I'm being honest. They're really bad. So he just gets put in a corner and he can just kind of get like kept in there. Next we have Asuka. Asuka has an annoying DP, and I would understand if people put Asuka in the mid tier. Well, I'll probably put Asuka here just to give her some slack. She would be here, but she suffers when the people that you play against kind of like catch on to it. So she's kind of like a, I don't want to be like mean, but it's just like she feels kind of gimmicky, right? So she has like these ridiculous kind of properties on her moves, but like once the opponent kind of learns the workaround and how to bait the moves and how to kind of like work around them and just kind of make you do those moves and then just punish accordingly, then that's when you start to notice the weaknesses that she has. You know, no projectile. I would say the worst thing about Asuka is her throw. Her throw is so bad. So bad. So these two are kind of like opposites, right? Where Asuka has good things going for her besides her throw, but then her throw really pulls her down. If you throw somebody in the corner, now you're in the corner. Great. You just put yourself in a spot that could possibly just cost you the game entirely. So her throw is just absolutely terrible. Whereas War has, basically his throw is kind of like his only real thing going for him. So they kind of suffer the opposite situations. If you give Asuka, what with her walk speed and just her other options, her DP, her Hayabusa, that can be pretty annoying in and of itself. If you give her a good throw where she just kind of keeps her opponent in the corner, she could very easily jump the tier list and pretty much kind of, I would say she would be above these two. If you give her a good throw, she might even like compete with these guys over here, if I'm being perfectly honest. She could be so much better with a good throw, but her trash throw just like makes her like the idea that like it's like, damn, I'm playing this character with a ridiculous DP, but if I get my opponent in the corner, I can't really like, because throws are a big part of the corner game, right? You gotta have a good throw, or at least like a decent throw to like just keep your opponent at a disadvantage. Sometimes they're just blocking your stuff and you gotta throw and you just gotta throw him. You're trying to keep him in the corner, you gotta throw him. What happens when Asuka does that? She ends up in the corner. Or if you throw the other way, you're still just taking him out of the corner, and it's just a lose-lose situation, which is what makes her so bad. If it wasn't for that, also her super is pretty bad. You know, the turtles can just backflip it. War can just straight up jump over it. I think Wingnut can air dash over it. So she's got a lot of things working against her. Mainly the throw, I would say. Other than that, she could actually have potential to be much better. So yeah, that's about it. If we want to go over the boss characters, I really don't know, honestly, in my opinion, why Rat King is banned, but I guess he's banned for reasons that I'm not aware of. I've tried Rat King. Karai is banned for obvious reasons. She's just broken beyond belief. But if I were to have an idea of where Rat King would be, he'd probably be somewhere here. He's pretty good. Or here. I don't know. Rat King has problems. No reversals. I don't know. It just kind of makes me think, like, the fact that he has no reversals, you could just kind of trap him. Many of his normals can be stuffed by certain characters. I've played against Chrome Dome, and Chrome Dome legit feels advantaged against Rat King. So, kind of crazy. But I don't think, like, if Rat King got allowed, I don't think Rat King would necessarily be like, oh my god, super busted up here. I think he might sit somewhere here where he's got the damage output, definitely, you know, the rat bomber, you know, the air mobility, what with the heavy kick in the air and all that. He can be ridiculous, definitely. But I think the no reversal syndrome, a lot like Wingnut, is gonna kind of neuter your boy, you know what I mean? And it definitely makes him abusable. You put him in a knockdown and you just kind of never really let him get up, honestly, and you just kind of trap him and he just kind of stays down. Can't really do anything. I really don't. This is very I would say maybe controversial opinions, just left and right, but yeah, this is overall my tier list, I would say. I don't know. I really don't know where. I guess I'll put him here or here, whatever. But yeah, this is more or less my tier list, my opinions. I think as we discover more about the game, more tournaments, I guess, are held. Positions might swap here and there, but I've had this opinion more or less for quite some time, and I've given a lot of thought for a lot of these characters, and I feel, as kooky my opinions might be, again, it's just my opinion. That's what tier lists are for. So yeah, on to just cutting the video, and later, guys, I'll probably make some other tier lists, and this is my first ever tier list video, so to speak. But yeah, catch you guys on the flip side.